So could you tell us kind of your outline of what you do with crowdfunding and your kind of major successes and possibly major failures and, how you've gone through the years with crowdfunding?
Okay. I've been involved with crowdfunding for 5, 6 years now. From the start especially in the Netherlands, the first crowdfunding platforms that started here were built by my company. I have an IT company. So the crowdfunding software for the crowdfunding infrastructure for these platforms is delivered by my IT company. The company is still running. We are implementing more and more clients now, not only in the Netherlands but also in the rest of Europe. But for me, the last 3 years, I've been specialized in strategy, crowdfunding strategy. So I'm involved by advising governments, new initiatives, new crowdfunding platforms, how to start up, how to launch this new way of funding, advising the European Commission. And also I've been involved with starting crowdfunding networks. So the European Crowdfunding Network, for example, is the Association for the Crowdfunding Industry in Europe. And it's involved, it's lobbying in Brussels, the European Commission, to make sure that crowdfunding will be a successful way of raising funds. So that's what I'm doing now. In the past few years, I've given dozens of workshops, a lot of keynote speeches on conferences on crowdfunding. Sometimes about how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign, but also trends in Europe, in the world, on crowdfunding. So that's what I'm doing, and currently I'm mostly in the educational part. I'm working on training programs. So I'm creating training materials for crowdfunding campaigns, and I'm learning crowdfunding mentors, crowdfunding trainers, how to use that, the products, and how to do this crowdfunding training activities. So that's what I'm doing. Sorry, long introduction.
No, it's perfect. I mean, you're obviously deeply involved.
Yes.
Actually, I'd like to throw in a side question because you would be the perfect person to ask. Where do you see, I've heard a lot of people say that the kind of crowdfunding model, the crowd-based model, the same one kind of present in Airbnb and in Uber, is not so much a new business model as it is the next business model. It's something that's going to not be adjacent to what exists currently, but instead mostly overtake it, perhaps even on the place of government where, government decisions themselves are crowd-sourced. What do you think about that? Do you think that could happen, or what are your opinions?
So what is exactly your question? That it is not a new business model? Is that your question? Or it's helping the government? Or?
No, essentially the question is, I've heard a lot of people say that crowdfunding isn't just another business model, but instead it's one that is likely, they project, to overtake the other business models. So it's not going to be another one among, but instead it's going to become one of the kind of most common, perhaps the most common model, not just for business, but perhaps for government.
Yeah, I can understand where that comes from. If you see crowdfunding not just as raising money, but just see it in a bit broader term, and it's like you're working together with a crowd, you're working together with a community. Community is helping with funding. That is indeed a complete new type of companies that are able to work that way. So these are more, this is the network economy, that people are working together more as a freelancer, working with a lot of small companies, small organizations, flexible organizations, working together, and also being very flexible where to raise funds. So in that case, yes, this is completely new. And on the other hand, it is not new at all. Also, because if you look back 100 years, it was the common way how the economy was evolving. At that moment, when you wanted to do something, you asked for money, but also for support in your local network. And it's only the last 50 years that we had a very large financial industry that is an industry on its own. So in fact, it's not that we are now going to do something new. It's just that in the last 50 years, it was the only moment in history that we did something else. So, and crowdfunding is facilitating that. And crowdfunding is, of course, one of the elements in that. And you talk about Airbnb and these kind of organizations, the sharing economy, collaborative economy, all types of descriptions to describe that we are going into a new type of economy where it's more about working together than and also that the capital, the money, will get back his social element. And I have to explain that in the past, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when you were launching a company and you needed money, you asked it from friends, you asked it from people that knew you directly or indirectly because of your reputation. Mm-hmm. So there was always a social connection with that money that you were lending or people were investing in you. Where in the last 50 years, with the growth of the financial industry, that connection, that social connection is lost. Because now you just have bankers. And nobody likes bankers, nobody trusts bankers, and the bankers make sure they serve themselves really well. So it's a completely new group of people. And you don't trust them, they don't trust you, so you get a lot of regulations, and everybody tries to benefit the most of it themselves. With crowdfunding, it gets back, you go back to where it started. You always have a group of people that have a certain connection to you. And it doesn't have to mean that these are your friends or your family. That can be bigger because we have the internet, we have all type of communities around certain practices. You can use that to raise funds for a certain project. And nowadays even more, reputation is really important because online everybody can find everything around you. So if you screw something up, everybody will know about it online. You just do a Google search and you know that you were the guy who was fucked up and you were making sure that the money was not returned to the investors. So you can only do it once. So that will be a new economy where we go back to trust each other and make sure that social connection gets back to the money, to the capital.
Interesting. So that actually never occurred to me. I always looked at it kind of like, oh, check out this new thing the internet has allowed us to do. But what's happened is it's allowed us to do something that we do naturally almost, just on a much larger and somewhat less personal scale. But more personal than what we've been doing for the last little while.
Yes, and the reason that it's growing as this fast the last 5 or 10 years is that it's much more efficient to do it online, of course. In the past, you have to go to everybody personally to collect the money, and now you just have online banking, you have internet sites, make it easier to collect money. Because that is something 20 years ago, we didn't have something with the internet. 10 years ago, it was growing really fast. So we needed something like the internet to make sure that it makes it easier to collect. And nowadays we don't understand that there never was an internet, but we have to think about where it comes from. Now we have the possibility, and now you see that people going to trust this much more and more.
That's cool. I like that.
Me too. That's why I'm involved so much.
That's awesome. And could you outline in broad strokes how, when you're advising a company that wants to get into crowdfunding, they should go about it, from, conception of the idea like, hey, maybe we should crowdfund, all the way to, fulfillment and next steps?
Yeah. The first step is that I explain them that crowdfunding is not just something you do next to your business. It is a fundamental part of your business. Well, what I mean with that is that a company with its founders are never, they are always connected in a certain network. So they have their network of clients or friends and families and investors. So before they even start with their crowdfunding campaign, the first thing is build up that network, build up that community. So think about talking with people personally, but also blogging about it, creating, for example, very simple, creating a Facebook page, build a network that is interested in your ID. So that's first step. Second step is you're really doing your crowdfunding campaign. So that is with raising the funds. Third step is fulfillment. And that makes sure that the network of people you build around your ID, your product, those are ambassadors. So those ambassadors you should really help them. So you should really send a lot of information about what you're doing to them, because they will spread the word. And it's much more word than just the money they gave you, because they have their own network. So you have your own marketing team created.
Right, and it's a marketing team bigger than any you could hire, because they're psyched.
Sure.
Like there could be thousands of them.
Yes, sure. But also that doesn't stop there, because that is just one campaign, and because you embed it in your organization, you can use it more often. And not only to raise money, sometimes you don't even need money. You just need the marketing power of the network, or you need the knowledge of your network. Crowdsourcing. You just ask them for input on your new product line you want to develop, or your new brilliant ID. So you should think about crowdfunding campaign not really like a financial campaign. You should think about it as a marketing campaign, and it also gets you some money sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes a lot, sometimes a bit.
Cool. It's actually interesting. You make a good point that having that audience is as much, perhaps even more valuable than having the money they give you. Because, for example, when I was thinking, what should I ask you in this interview, I went to Reddit. And I went to, like our entrepreneur, our crowdfunding, and asked them, hey, I'm going to be interviewing some rock stars. What would you want me to ask them? If you could ask them anything, what would you ask? And of course, the questions I got were some stuff I'd never thought of, and it was excellent.
Yes.
And it's like, I can imagine that, that's just Reddit. That's just like a very powerful, but also very non-focused network. But if I were to ask people who like specifically had paid me money before, loved what I was doing, wanted me to like grow, I can't imagine the response I would get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you share that information back to them, they will know that they will get something back. So the next time they will help you much more, and they feel a personal connection with you and with the project. And of course, it's also about marketing. So you have to frame it. You have to describe it. You make it easy digestible also for people. But that's all marketing. That's all. But these are all new ways of doing business we have to learn.
Yeah, I really do like it.
And one other thing, also one of the first things what I discuss with someone who wants to do crowdfunding is, especially when they are coming from a more non-profit environment, or if they only know Kickstarter, Indiegogo, think about different ways of financing. So crowdfunding is not only Kickstarter. Crowdfunding is just a way of collecting a group of people to invest in you. And that can either be, and you have several technologies for that. And of course that is, or there are several models for that. And that is, in some countries more restricted than in other countries. But for donations or reward-based crowdfunding or pre-sales, that's rather straightforward, and more people know how to do that. But why not do it for investing, for let people be really partly owner of your company, or debt-based funding, because this is also a cultural difference. In US, UK, investors always want equity. In Western Europe, investors want to invest in debt. So
they want
and
to get back.
Yeah, because they think, okay, we get at least the money back, and the failure rate of startups in Western Europe is much lower because they don't take a lot of risk. But in the US, if you have a high failure rate, then you want to have equity, because if it then grows fast, then you have a nice share in the company. And if it goes bankrupt, it doesn't matter if it is debt or equity, you lose everything.
Right.
So these are cultural differences. So there's no one general rule how crowdfunding works, but you have to, as a as an entrepreneur, you have to think about who are these investors that are willing to invest in my company, and what do they want in return. Normally I call it return on involvement. So it's an ROI, but then an involvement. They want to be involved. It's not only about money. They want to be involved. They want to hear about you as an entrepreneur. And sometimes they just want, if you think, if they just want to invest in you because they want something to happen and they don't want anything in return, just have a good idea, good feeling, then you can focus on donations. You don't have to give a lot of rewards back. If they want to have something in return, you either focus on reward-based crowdfunding, so you have a return that is a bit smaller cost than what it costs you to make, or free sales, when you're really giving something that is at least the same word as when it's going to be in the shop later on, but perhaps they always get a discount.
Mm-hmm.
So this is option 2, and the third option is a financial return, equity or debt-based funding. So you have to think about your investors. What do they want?
Interesting, yeah. Because up until now, the dominant model has been, you get usually a gift, sometimes a product, or sometimes, something related to the product. Yeah, I don't think I've seen many people offer equity or offer a kind of, a money back plus interest model. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's happening a lot already. If you see in Europe and also in the UK, you have a lot of debt-based models at this moment. Also equity models. They are running for a few years already. In the US, it is more restricted because of the Jobs Act, but after Title III, it will be also easier to do equity-based funding in the US. But another way of funding, and some researchers just see it as the same type of financing, is peer-to-peer lending. And peer-to-peer lending is also a new way of receiving funds without using a bank. So we still need banking in the future, but perhaps we don't need banks. So that's the main difference that we have to look into. That is, people still need money some way, and it's always good to have an intermediate that helps get the money from one person to another person. But it doesn't have to be a bank or a traditional bank, how they are organized like now. A company like Lending Club, they are going to file an IPO in, I think, this year. They raised $5 billion already on peer-to-peer loans.
Over what time frame?
Something like 10 years. But
that's not significant. That's pretty large.
Yeah, and I guess in the last year it was already 1 or 2 billion. So it's growing really fast. So it's doubling every year or something like that. And Google invested in it already, so they see that this is the new financial technology, and they want to be part of it.
Wow, I love the way this is going. I want to see where we're at in like 5 years.
Yeah.
Is there any like situation where you would recommend a company interested in crowdfunding don't take that route, take an alternate route, or vice versa? Any situation where they definitely should go crowdfunding?
Yeah, if one of the main problems with a crowdfunding campaign or a crowdfunding campaign that will not work is when the founder of the team is not willing to spend time on it. When they just think about, okay, I have it, it's really, really busy. I need to do a lot of research on my product. I have to do a lot of sales, and I don't have time to focus on my crowdfunding campaign.
Right.
So then, this definitely is not possibility, because they really have to focus and they have to spend time and energy in this campaign. Mm-hmm. So that's really important for them.
There's actually a great quote by Paul. It says, and this is before crowdfunding was a thing. the paraphrase says like when you're focusing on raising funds, that's what you're doing. Like you're not building anything in your business, you're not whatever, you're raising funds. And I imagine the same thing applies when you're raising crowdfunding.
Yes, that's true. You really, it's just, you have to focus on it. And if you see crowdfunding as more as just raising funds, it's also about creating an awareness. It's a nice marketing tool, but it's also market research, because you can really test your market. You can see if you can reach out to an interested audience, and if that audience is interested to invest in you or pre-buy your product, for example. So it's really valuable. It really helps, especially for startups, for young companies. It helps that you can validate your business model really, really early. And you can even adjust your model if it doesn't work. What is a really nice example on Kickstarter now is the Coolest Cooler. Their first campaign was not successful.
Oh, yeah.
So they relaunched it, and so they adjusted their product, they adjusted their market strategy, but still it is the same product, and now they are really, really successful.
Yeah, it got like vastly overfunded, right?
Yeah, they had more than 10 million already. They had the largest crowdfunding campaign ever on Kickstarter.
Oh my god. Wow.
But there's also, you have to think about that in advance. Do you want to get overfunded? It sounds really interesting to get overfunded, but sometimes it gives you a lot of problems.
Like
Because
what?
if you logistic problems, for example, if you planned a campaign and you wanted to create 1,000 products and send them out, now you have to send 100,000. And that sounds, the problem which you get there is that, for example, you found someone, a company, organization willing to build that product for you, but they're not able to scale up 100 times. And in that way, it gives you takes you a lot of extra time to be able to send out, to distribute those other 99,000 products, give you a bad, your clients don't like you anymore because they will get their products months too late. And if you're unlucky, that product even returns and it's not useful anymore. There was an example a few years ago on Kickstarter. There was a kind of a holder for your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a kind of a charger for your iPhone. You can put your iPhone in there. It was really stable and it works really fine. I think we're really successful to have programs which are logistics, sending out enough of those products. And at the time they were able to send most of those chargers. The new iPhone was already launched, and you couldn't use the charger with a new iPhone.
Oh, shit.
So then all those adapts of the Apple adapts, they always want to use the new iPhone, they were not able to use the charger anymore they bought half a year ago. So then sometimes it's better just to have, of course, a bit of funded campaign is good, but and then make sure that your clients that are using your products are really enthusiastic about it. They are going to be your marketing team for the next few years, and then launch another campaign later on. So that's what you're seeing now also, that companies are starting to do launching more campaigns after each other. So they just do a first campaign, try to test their business idea, then do a larger campaign later on to do pre-sales, for example, for their new products, and even do a round for investors. Sometimes co-investors with angels or venture capital. Just use several different crowdfunding campaigns after each other. Just like you're doing different marketing campaigns, just like you're doing different funding rounds as a startup.
Also, there's an example I found very interesting with a podcast. I believe it was, I forget which name, although I'm pretty sure a few have done it. It was the same thing. Every new season, they would ask, did you enjoy the last season? Will you help us fund the next one? And so it wasn't like something to launch the business, but instead a continual kind of funding of the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It really works like that. And sometimes that's also enough, and then people feel more involved because it's really nice that the Coolest Cooler raised $10 million now, and I guess they prepared it well and they make sure they don't have a problem with it. But you don't feel a really personal connection now with that company. In contrary, if you have your smaller campaign, there's 100 people. Yeah, those 100 people are people that make sure that that program, for example, or the podcast could be sent in the air for another year. You feel much more personal connection because your, for example, $100 really made a difference. And these few $100 you pay to the Coolest Cooler, it doesn't make any difference. If it is 10,800,000 300 or 10,800,000 $400, that doesn't make a difference. And that way you have a more loyal audience in your network around your company.
Mm. One thing I would love to get from you is kind of your opinions on the different crowdfunding platforms, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, etc. And if so, what they are individually good for, or who they are individually good for.
Yeah, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. In general, they are good. They're both good. You can use them both for your initiatives. It really makes a difference when you want to use different funding models, or sometimes if you are really focusing on a specific niche. If you have a medical startup, for example, it makes much more sense to go to a smaller niche platform where they are used to fund medical crowdfunding campaigns, and where there also are more investors connected to the network that are focusing on medical investments. So it really helps to focus on sometimes it's better to choose a niche platform than to go to a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, because these are also huge and there are thousands of different campaigns. They are not able to support you individually. And if you go to a smaller platform, they can help you a bit more personally, and it can put you in a newsletter, for example, to older investors, previous investors. So it helps to get a bit more attention if you use a specific niche platform. And it's also the case when you're not in the US. Sometimes it's better to choose a local platform because your network, your community, for example, wants to pay in euros or wants to have a French or a German website. Makes much more sense to put your campaign on a German website then, and instead of going to Kickstarter and do everything in English.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of the age-old debate of like when you start a business, do you aim for the Walmart or do you aim for the nomads who are minimalists who are female store,
Yes, and both of it can work. It really depends on as a platform. Of course, Kickstarter and Indiegogo want to focus on the global market. Only they also know that they are not able to attract everyone. For example, here in the Netherlands, we have a really strong crowdfunding platform for creative projects. So exactly what Kickstarter is focusing on. And Kickstarter launched in the Netherlands, but Kickstarter in the Netherlands has a really big problem of getting a market share because they are not in Dutch. They are not able to pay in euros here. So you see that the Dutch audience is not really interested to use that platform. So you see that the artists are more going to that other Dutch platform.
Which makes sense, of course.
Yes.
Cool. What is the kind of average total cost to actually set up and run a campaign? What should people kind of expect to output before they get input?
Most of it is it's time of your team. The team that's going to work on it. Most of the time, it's a number of man weeks, man months preparation. These are the main costs you have. But if you see it as your reaching out, it's your marketing activity. These are activities you already wanted to do. So, but you have to plan that in advance. If you want to have a consultant helping you out with that, most of them can do it just in a few days of work. They are not going, if it's a good consultant, they are not going to run your campaign, because you have to run your campaign yourself. Otherwise, it will never be a part of your DNA in your company. So you need to do that. But they can support you. They can help you. So these are some costs you have to calculate. Furthermore, of course, the platform you're going to use will charge a percentage, but this is only after your campaign is finished. Most of the time, between 5 and 8% of total cost will cost you. So also in your preparation, when you are working out your cost model, if you're going to raise $50,000, 10% of it or 8% of it should be deducted as costs. So you have to make sure that you still have enough money left to send out all the rewards, for example, and continue with your organization.
And that 10%, that's the taxes, or is that the consulting?
Sorry, the 10% that you mean. The 10% is our cost for the platform. So between 5 and 8% or 5 and 10%. These are the costs for the platform.
Right. And then there's also taxes and then perhaps consulting.
Yeah, and taxes, of course, that is really depending on where in the country where you are and how that is, because it is income. Sometimes you're selling products, so it's just. But if you are individual artist, for example, some governments or tax agencies see it as general income. So you have $50,000 extra income. So you have to make sure that you have to pay taxes above that.
Right.
Or you have to pay a lot of costs, then you don't have to pay any taxes. Makes it easier.
So every crowdfunder should, of course, make sure they know what the taxes are, they know what the Kickstarter or whatever platform is going to take, they know if they have consultants what they're going to take, and that what's left over is going to be enough to run and fulfill.
Yes.
When it comes to making the video, this is of course a very key part of any campaign. I mean, it can make or break it. How do you suggest they go about it? Should people go to a professional firm? Are there any in particular, perhaps, where should they go to write the scripts? How much should they be involved? Versus how much should they kind of ask for professional help?
It helps, of course, to have someone with a bit of experience. It doesn't have to be a professional video editor, but it always helps. So if you have a good script, someone who helps you creating high quality video material and also do the editing, it makes it, of course, more trustworthy, and people see a bit. If you only create a video when you're sitting behind your laptop, it can work. But it is much more difficult to send out the right message. So sometimes you need to film on location. You have to put on the right music edit. So it's always it depends on how much you want to invest. You're willing to spend on high quality video material, but it doesn't have to be material that you want to send out on a television broadcasting station, for example. It can be a bit less quality. It totally depends on your product, your company, you as a person. Sometimes it really helps to have a really simple video. But especially when crowdfunding now is growing much bigger and bigger, it helps to prepare. It's just like when you are going to do your marketing campaign or you are going to do some funding. If you prepare well, you have high quality slides, and you have do your homework better, it makes it much more easier to raise the funds.
Right. Of course. And assuming that a group is trying to like truly bootstrap, is it likely to be able to succeed just doing something with, your iPhone camera and a computer editor? Is there a precedent for that being something that will kind of raise a good round, or is it pretty required that you need professional video?
No, you cannot do it like that. That's not a problem. If you bootstrap like that is not a problem. It's just, and also the message you're spreading with that video is that you are bootstrapping. So right. Everybody knows that all the money they invest will go to this product, and it's not going to expensive lawyers, expensive video artists. So they know this is the first step you're taking. Perhaps next time when you're doing the next round of funding and you want to have higher funding rounds, then you do it a bit more professional. But at this moment, I want to support you because this is your first ID and you're bootstrapping. So yes, it's possible, of course.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it can even be an advantage where you're saying like every dollar we get is going to go into the product and nothing else.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah. And when you're advising your startups who are about to go into crowdfunding, do you advise that they kind of put work into like virality and growth hacking and getting PR and media attention? And if so, how?
I advise them normally don't do it too much. And it sounds a bit strange, but if you're doing your crowdfunding campaign, you do it, you focus on 3 different levels. The first level is your community closely connected to you. So these are people you know personally, people you can call or you can speak personally and ask them to invest in your company. So this is the first round, and these are if you're talking about a crowdfunding campaign, you try to raise at least 30% of your funding round with them.
Right.
And you're focusing, in the preparation phase, you're focusing on them, and you make sure that in the first few days of the campaign, they will help you fund the first 20 to 30%. After that, you reach out to your more global community. So that can be either your newsletter or your Facebook page when you created a large group of followers, but also your LinkedIn network, everything you can. They still have a personal connection with you, but not really one-on-one. So that's the second layer. And only after that one, you go to use general PR and reach out to bloggers and media to talk to write about you. And the reason about that is that if you start in the beginning with PR, someone comes to your campaign page and see you are only funded 1%. So they think, okay, you're not successful. Media is not willing to write about new projects. They are willing to write about successes. So when you when you had a successful campaign, or you almost had a successful campaign, then you can reach out to them, and then they're going to write about you. So then it helps. So, but later on in your campaign, so not at the start of your campaign. And the same is with investors, because those investors that don't know you personally, and they come to your website and they see you only have 1% funded, they will wait. And they think, okay, I come back later, and then they never come back.
Right.
So, and when they come at your campaign and they see, okay, it's already overfunded, and I only have 3 days to invest. Okay, I want to chip in. Makes it much easier for them. That people want to be part of something successful.
Right. And this is why you recommend, building an audience before you crowdfund. So you can go to them and say, hey, we launched, get in there.
Yes.
Great. Cool. That makes good sense. Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of interesting to know that if something is successful, then people will donate to it. But if it's a total failure, or it looks like it might be, nobody will help.
Yeah, it's just the normal psychology. Everybody, it works everywhere. If you walk around and you see a bar and it's empty, nobody is going to sit
Right? You
there.
don't
And
go in that
if,
bar.
no, yes, and if it's full, and you go in. That's how it
Right,
works.
right. Um, and how do you kind of leverage your contributors once they've contributed, right? So they've donated to you. Do you then kind of ask them, hey, tell your friends, or hey, can you, X, Y, Z? How do you leverage them?
Yeah, you always have to ask them that because these are your ambassadors, and you can ask them more times. So not only directly after they invested. What works really well is that you find out if someone invested in you, you find out more information about that person.
Hmm.
So it's just a short Google search, send them a personal email. Thank you very much for your donation. I see you also involved in filming, something like that. Um, we are really excited on this project and we are going to succeed, and please help us spread the word. Can you also introduce us to some other people that are interested? So that's something you can use for directly after the investment. And after that, during your campaign, you have more moments that you can try to reach out to them. Send out a daily update, for example. And especially when you are just at the end of your campaign, ask them, this is the last time, we have one opportunity now to close this project, especially if you didn't reach 100% yet. So we are only at 80%. We need the last 20%. Otherwise, the whole project will not continue. And they are part of it already. They invested in it. So for them, it is really important that it's going to be a success. So at that moment, they are much more willing to share that message and perhaps even do a bigger investment. So upgrade their investments.
I imagine to some degree, even if let's say you're overfunded, you could say, hey, we only need 5% more to reach our, 25th stretch goal, and you'll still get that response of like, oh, they only need this much, let's get in there.
Yeah, of course, when you are into stretch goals, it makes it much more difficult to convince them.
Yeah,
The strongest is indeed okay. 2 days, 80%. We really need to close the last 20%.
yeah, I can imagine that's a serious motivator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like when people invest in you, you'll kind of do some background research, find out what they're into, and say, hey, I know that you're into this, that's awesome, and kind of build on that. But if you're getting like 20,000 people, would you suggest kind of automating that to a degree, perhaps having a virtual assistant do the research, or only focusing on like a certain tier, or how would you approach that?
Yeah, that's always difficult when it's going that big, and you should do some automation. That's indeed very important. Then you really have to focus on the traditional marketing strategies, trying to find out who are these influencers, trying to at least send personal updates to them, or the bigger investors. You can indeed use strategy by virtual assistants, outsource that activity. It makes it a bit less personal, but it is still good. And it also depends on how big your own team is. And also, in general, most of the campaigns don't have that much funders. If you focus on the 95% of the crowdfunding campaigns, they have a few hundred funders. That's a typical crowdfunding campaign. So those campaigns like Cool is Cooler are really nice, but they're exceptional, and you don't have a lot of those campaigns. Most of the campaigns only have a few hundred funders. And that makes it also very powerful because these are funders that are really supporters of you, of your idea, your company. And it can either be funders that are funding $50 for a product, but it can also be funders that all are investing $1,000 in your as a company in equity or debt, for example. So then still you raise €500,000, then it's only from a few hundred people.
Yeah, which might actually be to a degree preferable in that A, odds are if there's that many people, they probably invested more than if there's a ton of people with, like, it just seems like if you reach a high goal, it might be because you've had less people investing more money therefore being more personally invested. But also B, because with 100 people, that's a community that can interconnect. Like you could kind of build a blog or a Facebook page or something where they get to know each other and kind of build upon each other. Whereas if it's, 10,000, it's not as easily interconnectable, even though it may be bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then it is really a community, and you can ask them to come over to your office for a drink or your year review or something else. And with 10,000, it makes it much more difficult. But of course, those 10,000 are also very valuable because these are a more general marketing group of people you can use. So it depends really on how your organization, your company is structured.
Right, of course, yeah. And with these contributors, do you kind of, do you recommend a certain degree of interaction with them, or is that dependent on the level of contribution or the type of crowdfunding campaign?
At least you should send out regular newsletters to them because these are people that want to hear about the progress of your project. So that's something you do have to do at least.
That's kind of like the bare minimum.
Sorry?
That's like the bare minimum.
Yeah, that's really the bare minimum. Just have an update about your project. If you want to have them involved in it, perhaps even add input to the rest of your project, of course you need to contact them more regularly. But in general, most of the funders are not really active afterwards. You only have a very small percentage that is active. And if you're just open for that, for example, if you have a few hundred people that invested in you, only a few of them are really interested to participate or have additional questions or want to do extra work for you. Just be open for that and treat that one by one. So if they are open to help you with your own research, or they want to, if you're going to, they want to be a volunteer, perhaps even work for you, be open for it.
Right. And I guess once you've been funded, right, and you've kind of even overfunded, you've kind of hit that goal. I hear a lot of following horror stories about fulfillment, where, fulfillment, like you said, may take way too long. Fulfillment may end up costing more money than was gained and, bleed the business. Fulfillment may just be a huge, painful hassle. Are there any kind of, I guess in two parts, one, things you can do to kind of avoid common pitfalls? And then B, I guess this should be the first question, what are the common pitfalls when it comes to fulfilling?
Now, one of them we discussed a bit before is overfunding. Mm-hmm. If you really overfunded 100 times, perhaps you didn't prepare for that, so you will get into troubles fulfilling your selling out or your products. So that's one of the possible pitfalls. So you have to prepare for it. How far can you go? It's nice to have a 10 times overfunded project. And if you only have to send out a digital movie or digital number, then it's not a problem. But if you have to really send out physical products, make sure to think about that you are not willing to go too far with your overfunding. So that's one of the things. Also, again, preparation. Know a bit what to expect from it. Know that if you are going to put that order in China for 10,000 of those products you want to submit as a reward, how much will it cost? Sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes you need to do an educated guess because you cannot do everything in advance. But that's just business. This is how you, as an entrepreneur, calculate your risks.
Right.
But think about it in advance and not let it just come over you and then afterwards, oh damn, sending out all those rewards cost me more than I get the money. So that's not good.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as a final question to dive in with you, if you could kind of have like one core common thread you've noticed through everyone who has had a great campaign and done it well? What is that? What is the common quality or common mindset, perhaps?
Dedication. I think that is one of the most important mindset. That if you are really dedicated in this campaign, and if you as a person or as a company also are very connected with your environment, so you're always open in sharing your thoughts, working together with your network. That works. If you see all the successful crowdfunding campaigns, they didn't come from nothing. They have built up in advance, sometimes years in advance. So they have built up their own network, their own community, from personal connections to business connections. People love the person or the idea or the company, and then they started to do crowdfunding. So they gave away a lot of knowledge, information already. They were connected, and then they were really dedicated to focus for a few months on this campaign and make it really successful.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Great. Is there anything else like you'd like to tell people who are crowdfunding to make sure they know? Is there any message you'd like to get out to them?
You can start already now by building up your community. So share your ideas, share your knowledge, and also make sure that you can gather the people that are interested in you and send them out updates already. You don't have to tell them that you're going to do crowdfunding already, but you're sharing your ideas about sharing a company. You're sharing your ideas about starting a new product if you have a company already. Be really open. I think that is also really important. So be open and share your knowledge. And if you share your knowledge, people will be willing to give something back in the future.
Great. Excellent. Cool. And Ronald, where can they, people are going to obviously, want to know more about you, want to dive into your mind deeper than this goes. Where can they find you? Where can they kind of contact you or find your knowledge or, yeah.
If you, on Twitter, you can follow me on @Kleverlaan, so my surname.
Okay. Kleverlaan.
Yes, that's true. There's also the same name for SlideShare. So I have a lot of presentations I gave on SlideShare. Not all of them are in English, but some of them are in English. So you can see some crowdfunding 101 or crowdfunding for fundraisers presentations there. And of course on LinkedIn. And just find me on LinkedIn, just connect, and there you will find everything about me.
Right on. Cool. And if people do want to reach out to you personally, are you open to that? And if so, how would they reach you?
Yeah, they can always send me an email at ronald@kleverlaan.com. So that's my personal email. But they can also reach out by Twitter or by LinkedIn. And I try to get back to everyone.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, great. This was amazing. Thank you so much. This was very valuable. I can't wait to get the feedback.
No, you're welcome, and good luck with the rest.
Yeah, right on. All right, cheers.
Okay, speak to you later. Bye.